Anyone can read means exactly what it says. Anyone can read. Anyone can read challenges the accepted understanding of a dyslexic's ability to read. Apparently they can only read quite laboriously, quite slowly, if they do learn to read. Not so. They can read as well as you and I. We're getting amazing results every time. So what's the goal of Anyone Can Read? To change the way reading is taught in this country and eradicate reading failure from our schools and our society. We can do it. You will hear stories tonight that prove it. So what is causing the problem? Part of it is labelling. And it's a very easy fix. We put a label on someone. But what does a label actually do? It stereotypes. It's a judgment. Labels stick. If someone's labelled a thief, it's lifelong. You don't get over it next week. It always sticks. So we come to the label dyslexia, a brain disorder. Well, that's going to make you feel good, isn't it? What's the symptom? You can't read. Problems with words is actually what dyslexia means. It's grown to mean a lot more. And it's got huge power. And there is so many things out there when someone finds that their kid is called dyslexic and they start going looking. What you read is enormous. And it's got a lot of technical stuff, a lot of very high power stuff. You'll meet things like this, which demonstrate that brain scanning is showing a dyslexic's brain is different. It's fundamentally wired differently than anybody else. So why are kids diagnosed as dyslexic? Because without that diagnosis you can't get support. The Ministry of Ed won't fund any reader-writers or anything else, so you have no option. Next I'd like you to meet James. James was 16 when I was working with him. I was just 15, turning 16. And he comes from a really good family. His mum was a teacher, his dad's a teacher. And James, again, is one of those kids, what you see is what you get. So, what was happening for James?
Just sort of sitting in the classroom doing nothing, like just sitting in the classroom doing absolutely nothing, like looking at the work and sort of trying to do it but not being able to do it, and the teacher's not helping me or anything, and then just not fun at all.
School hadn't been much of a place for James. That was about the time I came onto the scene. Now James has a very low attention span, about 3 minutes according to the school. So every Thursday afternoon James and I would sit down at 5 o'clock after James had done a day at school, and we'd work for 2 hours. And never once did James lose concentration. What he did do was actually learn. He learned quite well. He actually went off and got his licence, and I think he took about 12 minutes. James is now a water services technician for Downer. He's doing training. They're pouring lots of training into him. I rang him and he said, "Reading? Well, that's all history. This is this kid here who couldn't do anything through school. History. Absolutely wonderful." We had a wake-up call at the end of last year called PIRLS, Progress in International Reading and Literacy Study. And it's the one time where New Zealand's performance, reading-wise, is looked at on a global scale. Most of you have probably heard of it. We slipped from 22nd to 32nd. It gets worse. We are the bottom country of the English-speaking world for reading. What was overlooked was every single one of those extra kids that now can't read that used to be able to, because in 1970 we were the top country in the world. Every one of those bits of data has a face in a family, and that seems to have been overlooked. I'd now like to introduce you to Megan. I worked with Megan's son Tyler after the Nelson conference, and her story captures so many of the elements of the reality of reading failure and just what is happening to thousands and thousands and thousands of families through this country right now.
Well, Tyler, he hit every milestone as a youngster, and when he started school he was just so excited. But then school was not the place he really wanted to be, because we found out that Tyler was very dyslexic and wasn't able to learn like the other children in the class from reading books. And that's why we're sitting here, because Noel has turned Tyler's life around. After the first session, Noel had left a book with Tyler and asked him for homework to read one of the chapters. The next day, Tyler said he would read it. He told Noel about it when Noel arrived, and he said that he could remember what he had been reading with Noel the day before, something that he could never remember doing before. Tyler is now able to read, understand and retain the information, and he is over the moon.
That always catches me as well, because you're working with real people. Because that is the emotion in this, and that is very, very difficult for us to communicate to other people just how much it affects people. Every time one of these kids succeeds in reading, it demonstrates they were always capable of it. The blockage wasn't learning. It wasn't a label. What the blockage was no one had actually sat down and dug deep enough to find out where it is. I'm never going to be responsible for making Tyler feel worse than he did, because I know how much guts it takes for a kid to actually sit down again and try something when all they have known is failure after failure after failure after failure, and every single one of those failures blames the kid. Didn't work hard enough, got a squiffy brain, oh, the father's got it too. Every success story proves that there is an answer and destroys the accepted understanding that dyslexics can't learn to read. Short-term memory. Most programs work on short-term memory. This is the building blocks of phonemic awareness. So at level 1, the kid has to get their mouth ready to pronounce the letters, pronounce the words. By level 12, they're rhyming cart and art and part and that. And that's pretty well the building blocks, the foundations of what we're actually doing right now. Let's see if we can blow this particular theory out of the water right here and right now. See if you can read that. So, no graphemes and phonemes here. So the first job of every school is teach kids to read. Because if you can't read, you can't participate. If you can't participate, you can't succeed. You're either going to cause a problem, generally behavioural, or you're going to lock it up inside, and instead of ending up with aggression and violence, you'll end up with anxiety and depression. So the first job of the school is to teach kids to read, because if you can't read, what else can they do? They are limited every step of the way. However, what I like about this one is it says determining the cost of failure to teach reading. Not learn it, teach it. How large is the early reading instruction problem? Very. It's putting it back on teachers, where it was 30 years ago. So one of the challenges I've got for teachers is to take back your profession from the administrators and the bureaucrats. You're the people out there doing it. The cost of reading failure. According to the World Literacy Foundation, it costs this country $3 billion a year. I like the bit at the bottom when it says the end result of low literacy levels is trapping people in a cycle of poverty, poor health, limited employment opportunities, reduced income potential and low productivity in businesses. Trapping people. That's exactly what it's doing. The statistics are horrendous. 50% of 8-year-olds who can't read end up on welfare or in prison. 85+% of our inmates have literacy issues. Judge Beecroft identifies that 2/3 of the young people in front of the youth court come from the 1% of kids that are disengaged in our school system. The second largest group appearing in front of that court have learning deficiencies. And then you add that to the 80 to 90% of learning issues are dyslexia. And you see how important it is. Meet Leanne. She's a teacher at Picton School. Leanne has these kids that she works with, so would I train her? So we started working together. Frankie.
Is an tree. She is. I hate reading.
Frankie, turn around, love. If you have a look at the words, it'll make it easier for you.
But it's too hard to read. That's why I hate reading books.
So she worked away with Frankie, and then we find a change.
They ran into the water. The river.
Good fixing up. Well done.
Thump, thump, thump. The Tyrannosaurus Rex came down the river. And it came down to the river.
Good.
Quite a different character. Big change in the classroom. So we skip forward a little bit further.
You like reading?
Yeah. It's cool.
Do you think you're a good reader?
Yep.
How do you know you're a good reader?
Because I read at home.
Yeah, what else do you do?
And I read at school. And I read books at school.
Cool.
For me it's awesome because I've never met Frankie. I've only ever met Leanne. And that's the power. Leanne tells me, as a teacher, she's been revitalised because she can go out there and she can achieve that. That's why she joined the job, to achieve that. And now she is. So, from tonight, my plea is simply, make reading failure unacceptable, and that is what it will become. Unacceptable. I hope you've seen enough so that you say, challenge what's happening at the moment. We don't have to accept it. Not because of a label, not because of a squiffy brain, not because of family history, not because the kid didn't work hard enough. Challenge it. Because there's plenty of examples out here, on the website, wherever, that can actually say, yes, you're right. Don't accept reading failure. You don't have to. It's too destructive. And that is anyone can read.